Ta-da! Good. Now, the last few days we were discussing something completely different than we're going to be discussing today. We were discussing the fact that you're supposed to say Kiddush both on Friday night and on Shabbos day, right? And then we went back and forth, how do we know this, etc. We had a story of Rav Ashi. He went to Mechuzah and he wasn't sure what the rule was, so... Yeah? Thank you. Shkoyach. Anyways, in Mechuzah, he wasn't sure what the rule is, so he made Boire Pri Hagofen, and he saw people drink, and then he knew he was good to go. Yeah, we also discussed yesterday that if a person did not make Havdalah on Saturday night, they can make it all the way up till Tuesday night, up until Wednesday. Very good.
That means Jewish time Wednesday or like modern day Wednesday?
Huh? That is a good question, and if you want a good answer, I can't give it to you because we did not mention it in the Gamara, and we do not play a guessing game over here. Usually we do Sheshkia is the end of the previous day, and well, it's called Bein Hashmoshes, which means it is possibly the next day, and therefore you would have an issue making a blessing, because all blessings are actually rabbinic, except for grace after meals. Grace after meals is the only blessing that is not rabbinic, right? Yeah, the only blessing that's not rabbinic is the grace after meals. All the other ones are rabbinic, and the general rule is that with the rabbinic blessing, if you're not sure, when in doubt, don't do it. And therefore, if you're in doubt whether it's Tuesday or Wednesday, you wouldn't do it, which would mean the second the sun goes down, we hit Bein Hashmoshes, which is twilight zone, which basically means that we're not sure whether it is still Tuesday or it turned into Wednesday. Yes?
There's special prayer here. I'm relating it
Which special prayer?
Praying to Lachaf. You skip it on Saturday night.
Right.
Can you do it up to Tuesday?
That is a good question. It's a good question. That particular, it's not a blessing. Most of it, if you pass it here, I believe most of it are quotes from various biblical sources. And I don't see why you cannot say biblical sources. Anytime you want, you could do it even on Wednesday and Thursday. The question is this blessing really relevant specifically to Havdalah, even though that's when we say it, but it's not necessarily exclusively relevant to Havdalah. It's just a blessing that we give each other on Saturday night. And therefore, I would assume that you could say it anytime you want, if you want to bless somebody. Why not? I would assume so. Unless you bring me a source that would say otherwise, I would suggest that is, in fact, the rule. All right? Anyways, okay, that was a brief recap of what we learned up until today in the Shi'ur. Okay? Good. Omar Rav Yaakov Bar Idi Avaloy, we actually did read this yesterday as well, is that Rav Yaakov Bar Idi says we do not make the blessing on the candle, and we explained that the blessing on the fire that we make on Saturday night, that blessing is only Saturday night because that's when fire was invented. We went on a whole tangent yesterday about the fact that the first human invention ever was fire, and that was invented Saturday night, the day after Adam was created. All right? Good. Now we're starting a little bit of a new discussion, which will answer some questions that already came up previously this week, as you will hear shortly. Ready to handle this? Kenai Nahore. Omar Rav Bruno, Rav Bruno says in the name of Rav, Hanoitel Yodov Lo Yikadish. Somebody, can I know that?
Well, I think that might have been the Wi-Fi.
That might have been also the Wi-Fi.
No, maybe not. No, we're good.
Oh wow, the Wi-Fi is good even though the electricity. Well, not all the electricity went out. This one's on. Yeah, we had a bit of a breaker pop over here. Good.
He's working,
We're good. We still have Wi-Fi. It's a miracle.
That's okay. We have Wi-Fi. We're still good. We had. Sorry for anybody that doesn't realize, but our lights went out over here. Some of our lights went out. Some of ours didn't. We'll continue anyways. Okay. Somebody that washes their hands, which means they begin their meal by washing their hands, lo yekadish, you should not make the blessing on kiddush. Right? Why? Says the Rashi, because it is a hefsik, it is a separation between washing and eating. And as we know, anybody that doesn't know that the Jewish people, we wash our hands before we eat, and then when we wash our hands until we eat, until we make the blessing on the bread, right? Everybody talks like this. Ooh, ee, e.
We don't say a word.
Right? In other words, we're not allowed to talk. We're not allowed to, and the real reason we're not allowed to talk is you're not allowed to do anything significant between washing your hands and eating the bread. Why? Because you're washing your hands with intent of starting the meal, and therefore anything that separates that would suggest that that washing of the hands was not intended for the meal, and therefore you have to wash again for the meal. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a bracha for washing the hands and a bracha for the bread. We have to put that part in for the people.
Correct. There is one blessing from washing the hands, and there's a separate blessing for eating the bread. However, the washing the hands is you're washing your hands to eat the bread, and if you do anything between washing your hands and eating the bread, you're kind of dividing the washing from the eating, which essentially disqualifies the washing, and you'd have to wash again. Yeah.
Difference between wash and rinse.
I don't know what I mean by rinse. You have to wash. There's the traditional way we wash. We pour 3 times on one hand, 3 times on the other. By the way, there are some traditions that only pour once on each hand. Do you know that? Sorry, not once, twice. No one does it once. Some people do twice. 1, 2, 1, 2, and then they go eat. That's that. All right. Please get out of the kitchen. Thank you. Arois gegangen. Zeo. Good. Anyways, we have some students that prefer to eat than to listen to what I have to say, unfortunately. What could you do? All right, where are we? Okay, so he says, Rab Bruno says in the name of Rav, once you've washed your hands to eat, you do not say Kiddush. Because if you would say Kiddush, that would differentiate, that would separate your washing from your eating, and therefore you do not make Kiddush if you wash your hands. Amar lahu Rav Yitzchak responded to him as follows: Bar Shmuel, the son of Shmuel, Bar Marta, the son of Marta. Akati loy noch nafshei de Rav. Rav is not yet even dead. Shachachinenu lishmaitse. He didn't even pass away yet, and you forgot his teaching. In other words, Rab Bruno says that this is what Rav says, and then Rav Yitzchak says, hold on a second. Rav is not even passed away yet, and you are already forgetting his teaching. In other words, he's trying to tell you that you are quoting Rav incorrectly, because Rav clearly taught otherwise, right? But this is his drastic way of making it more, how should I say it, dramatic. He wanted to make it a little dramatic, so that's what he said. He said, he didn't even pass away yet, and you still forgot what he said. All right? Good. Well, so what did he say? Zimnin Sagian. He says many times, Havaka Amina Kamei de Rav, I was personally in front of Rav many times. Zimnin de Chavivo Alehu Rifta. There were times where he preferred bread, to eat bread. Mekadesh Arifta, he would make kiddush, he would make the blessing on the bread. In other words, we just finished, by the way, the quota for this week. And it is, as I told you in the past, it's a much smaller quota than usual. Okay? But essentially, we have one rabbi that says that if you wash, you cannot make Kiddush. And the other rabbi saying, well, you're quoting Rav, and Rav actually would specifically make Kiddush after washing. Oh, Vayihi Oyer. Good. Okay. So that is pretty much the end of this Gemara. And here is the source for, what's your name again? Sorry. Avi, you mentioned yesterday that you were wondering what happens if you don't like wine, or you don't want to get drunk, or if you're, God forbid, an alcoholic and you feel that if you drink wine, you may relapse on this horrible habit. So there is an option to make Kiddush on bread, right? And this is the option, this is the Gemara that pretty much teaches us that you have an option to make Kiddush on bread. Yeah?
Would you not just make it on grape juice instead?
Depends. It depends. Some people would suggest that it's better to make it on bread than to make it on grape juice, because grape juice is not really it's not really wine. It's something else. Some people say you could do it on grape juice. Some people say you don't. The Lubavitcher Rebbe had a heart attack in Lamed Ches, which is I think it's in 1977, I believe it was, and during his heart attack, which was on a Jewish holiday, they asked him to eat, and he says, I can't eat without making Kiddush. So they said, okay, we'll bring you Kiddush. They said, well, I can't make Kiddush out of the sukkah. So they brought him to the sukkah. And then they brought him grape juice, and he's like, I don't make Kiddush on grape juice. So they had to bring him wine. In the middle of a heart attack, he made Kiddush, drank a cup of wine, and by the way, today, I think they say it's actually good sometimes for a heart attack to drink wine. In those days, they were like, oh, wine, alcohol, right? The Rebbe drank it, right? Kiddush on wine. Yeah. Yeah.
My father used to sit down in the middle of Kiddush Friday night.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer. The possible answer is that they sometimes have to make Kiddush on bread.
Right.
Because they didn't have kosher wine.
Right.
And therefore, they didn't want to be standing up when they eat bread, so they sat down and make Kiddush so when they say they can be sitting when they eat bread. It's not nice to stand up and eat bread.
Could be. That's the way they did. YTD is back, by the way, so we can go back on it if you want. All right. Anyways, can I know how to? Oh, beautiful. Okay. Now, good. Should we do a Tosfos or should we do Rashba? What should we do? Huh? There's actually a very interesting Tosfos that I feel I want to share. Let's see, wow, there's a nice crowd over here. There's a Tosfos that I want to share, which is very interesting. I think you'd find interesting. Yeah? Now, we basically said, Zochreu al hayayin, you need to remember Shabbos on a cup of wine, right? Where does that come from? Who decided to use wine and not bread and not any other substance to make Kiddush? So this is a little bit what Tosfos is going to be discussing. All right? Is be discussing how this idea of the substance of wine came about. It's Zoichreu alayayin is the beginning of the Tosfos. Remember it on the wine. The Schirek Siv alayayin, he says, because there is actually a biblical source for remembering something on wine. It is from Hosea. Hosea is how do we say it in English?
Isaiah?
No, I think it's Hosea. Hosea? No, there's Isaiah and there's... No, Yeshaya is Isaiah. Hosea? Hosea? Yeah, and that's how they pronounce it? Hosea. So in Hosea, chapter 14, it says as follows. Zichru keyayin levanon. Remember Lebanon like wine. Yeah. Naskirecha dudech miyayin. There's another place in Shir Hashirim, which is, what do they call it? I think Escalades, no? Is that Shir Hashirim?
Ecclesiastes.
Oh, Ecclesiastes. No, well, Ecclesiastes in the first chapter. So what's Shir Hashirim? Song of Songs, but they have another name for it. No, Song of Songs is literally the definition of Shir Hashirim. But what is?
That's what they call it.
No, they call it Song of Songs? Yeah. Oh, okay, Song of Songs. So in the first chapter of Songs of Songs, it also says, I remember my beloved with wine, from wine. So wine is something about remembering. When you're remembering, there's a concept of wine. I'm not sure if wine actually triggers your actual memory. I'm not sure about that. Do you think that it makes your memory stronger when you drink wine? I'll tell you. I'll be honest with you. When I am under the influence, I'm much more focused. I'm serious. I don't know why, but I am. I could study better when I'm under the influence. Yeah. I don't know. If I did it every day, I don't know what it would do. But there is. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I've heard one of the reasons why drunk drivers are so commonly getting into accidents is not because they cannot focus on the road. They could actually focus on the road because you can focus better on wine. However, you're hyper focused. So when you start, you're focused on the road, and then something distracts you, and then you get so focused on the second thing that you're not focused on the road.
I think it's more like the motor skill coordination problem.
Huh? No, you're hyper focused, but on one thing. So if you get disfocused, meaning if you lose focus on the road and you start paying attention to something else, forget about it. And by the way, that's also why usually drunk drivers, they'll tell you, "What do you mean? I feel confident. I feel I can focus." Because they get in the car, they can focus, and they're right. They could focus, but then all it takes is 1 second. I don't know, something's going on the side of the road. You turn like this, and you completely ignore the front, and before you know it, you crashed into somebody.
Maybe, but I think it's
killed them,
it's more
and then you
motor
end up in jail.
skills. It's more the fact that you don't have good motor coordination.
Motor coordination, you
That's
think?
that's why people stumble around when they're drunk.
Maybe it depends how drunk you are.
Not the safest thing.
Don't drive when you're drunk. It's definitely not safe. It's not good for your health to drive when you're
You can
drunk.
drive, but we'll take your
Yes.
children into the mountains.
Yeah. Yes.
If a woman's pregnant, I've read things on the show.
Yeah.
If a woman's pregnant, she actually doesn't have to drink the wine during Kiddush.
So you never have to drink the wine during Kiddush. I hate to break it to you. It is a complete minhag. There is no obligation whatsoever to drink the wine from Kiddush. It is something that it's almost like shon, okay, because I appreciate the Kiddush, so I get to it. As long as you hear somebody say Kiddush and you say Amen, you have completely fulfilled your Kiddush obligation, assuming you had in mind to fulfill your obligation. You do not need to drink. No, yes, correct. Even the person making the blessing doesn't need to drink. Somebody needs to drink. Yes, somebody needs to drink it, but it doesn't have to be not even the person making the blessing.
I can make Kiddush and give someone who would enjoy the wine.
Correct.
And then I fulfill my
Correct. Yes, as a matter of fact, if you're familiar, during the 9 days before Tisha B'Av, we do not drink wine. Now we could drink wine on Shabbat, so we can make Kiddush Friday night, Shabbos day. However, Havdalah, the blessing after Shabbat's over already, and therefore you're not allowed to drink wine. Right? So there's different things. What do we do? What do you do, Mendel? What do you do on the 9 days for Havdalah? You're not allowed to drink the wine. What do you do? You never paid attention. Yeah?
Make Havdalah on a shahar.
You could? What?
Make Havdalah on a shahar.
Right, you can make, so some people will make the blessing on beer, right? I actually, by the way, will do that usually because I like drinking beer. Yeah. You might not notice, I don't know if you notice that I like drinking beer, so, yeah.
Never seen you drink.
I love it when I walk into like a restaurant with my wife and like everybody's looking at this rabbi with a big beard and then I order like a big tall glass of beer and everybody's like, I'm like, get out of here. I like that beer. What's that? Because I'm a rabbi, I can't like a beer.
What's the matter for you, huh?
What's wrong? Anyways, good. What were we saying? Some people, they do not make it on beer. They actually make it on a very light wine and then give it to a child under 13 years old to drink. That's allowed. And again, the person making Havdalah says Borei Pri Hagafen, but the kid drinks. It's actually allowed. It sounds strange, but it is allowed. Yeah. So again, you are allowed to make because the blessing on wine has to do with the person deriving pleasure from the drinking of the wine, which somebody under bar mitzvah could also. You cannot make a blessing. You cannot make a blessing on a mitzvah for somebody that's under bar mitzvah because he doesn't have a mitzvah, right? As a matter of fact, you're not allowed to make havdalah for a child, and by the way, for a woman as well, because there's a dispute whether women are obligated to hear the blessing of havdalah. However, you're making the blessing of havdalah, you're really making for yourself. The blessing of the wine, you're making with in mind that the kid's going to drink it. And the kid, you could make a blessing for the kid to drink the wine because they're also having pleasure. They do not have an obligation.
Wait,
they are not
Havdalah?
commanded. Talking about in the 9 days. Oh, can I know? Let's go. Anyways, so Tosfos basically says that we have two biblical sources that mentions remembering something is connected with wine. And this remembrance on the wine, says Tosfos, is the kiddush that we make on Friday night. And he says, that the v'chulu that we say, we're not meant to do that on a cup. Right? I spoke about before, v'chulu hashemayim is not part of kiddush. Yes, elabit tefillah, you're really only meant to say that during your evening prayer. You're meant to say the verses vayechulu. Kidamrin b'Shabbos, like it says in Tractate Shabbos, page 119b. V'loini takin alakois, and the only reason why we say vayechulu before we drink kiddush, when we make kiddush at home, this is only to fulfill the obligation of your children and your household, which means your wife. Right? So again, technically, if you say vayechulu in the prayer, Friday night, you say vayechulu, right? In Shmona Esrei, you say vayechulu. Technically, you should not have to say vayechulu again. Right? You did it. You're done. Why then do we say it after Shemona Esrei and then we say it again when we make Kiddush? So first of all, Tosfos is going to deal with this. And this is why I wanted to read this Tosfos, because it has some interesting details in this Tosfos. The reason why we say Vayechulu during Shemona Esrei is because we should be saying it at least once. The reason why we say it just while we're making Kiddush, or I would suggest just before we make Kiddush, we say Yom HaShishi Vayechulu Hashemayim V'Aretz V'Chotzim. That's not part of Kiddush. That is something that was established to say before you make Kiddush. Kiddush really starts from Borei Pri Hagafen.
You have to say it after Shemona Esrei.
Correct, and that's why Tosfos is going to explain. That's why I read this, because you guys are sitting here and you're wondering, why do I say Vayechulu 3 times when the Tosfos says you're only meant to say it once? So we're telling you, the first time you're meant to say it because you're meant to say it. The second time you say it, we're about to tell you why the second time you say it, which is after Shemona Esrei. We didn't tell you yet. The third one that we say is at home when you make Kiddush. That is because your wife did not hear Vayechulu, and she should also hear the verses of Vayechulu, which are the verses in the Torah that basically speak about God finishing the work that He did during the 6 days of creation.
If I'm single, I have a wife, I shouldn't say Vayechulu.
So let me explain to you. The rabbis understood the dynamics of human psychology, and when they made a rule, they didn't feel that the masses would be able to remember all the details of the rules, right? And therefore, when they made a rule, they made it for the masses, and everybody has to keep it. There's no exceptions. Zel. Now, the question is, why do they do it? Because they know that the fact is that this is something that will happen, as we're gonna learn in a second about the second Vayechulu. Why do we say Vayechulu out loud after we finish Shemona Esrei? This is all because Yom Tov Shecholi is b'Shabbos that falls out on Shabbos. Because if you look at the Yom Tov Shemona Esrei, the prayer we say on a Jewish holiday, it does not include Vayechulu. And since it does not include Vayechulu, but you have a problem that you're meant to say Vayechulu, so therefore we say it after Shemona Esrei. Right?
Yeah.
Now you'd say, okay, so we should only say it on Yom Tov. Right? We shouldn't say it on Shabbos. But once again, the rabbis felt that there might be confusion, and therefore the rabbis decided to establish that we say it every week, just because we shouldn't forget to say it on Yom Tov. Right? Good. Shecholi is b'Shabbos b'Shabbos ata b'chartonu, because on, yeah.
I see sometimes in shul, some people, if they're in Shemona Esrei, and they don't say Shemona Esrei on time,
Yeah.
they miss the collective Vayechulu.
Yeah.
They won't say it. Because they say you have to say it with other people.
There's a concept of saying it with somebody because it's a type concept of like a testimony. You're testifying to the fact that God completed creation, etc. It's like a testimony, and a testimony witnesses. We know biblically, in order to give testimony, you have to have at least 2 witnesses. You can't have less than 2 witnesses. It's not considered testimony. Wow. And therefore, many people, they only say Vayechulu. Sometimes they'll actually call somebody over and ask them to say it again. But now that you learned this Tosfos, technically, if you skip it, it's not the big deal. You said it once in Shemona Esrei, you're good to go, right? Yeah, your family needs to. Okay, so you'll say it again by Kiddush, right?
So what's the reason we say that?
But what's going to happen? What's going to happen if it's on Yom Tov?
Yeah,
Then maybe you should re-say it, right? You see, you learn Tosfos, you learn everything about what you're doing.
he shows through from A to Z.
Yeah, from A to Z. And you think, again, people think, oh, these Jewish people, we just do random things. I'm telling you, all these things are calculated. I've said this many times, that Judaism by far is the most documented religion ever.
What's the reason?
In the history of mankind, there's never a religion that's documented. All the details, whatever we do is written down. And if it's not written down, then you're probably not doing it right, or you're not doing, or you're either not doing what's right or doing what's wrong.
Yeah.
Because if it's not written down, forget about it.
What's the reason why on Yom Tov you should probably say it? What's your reasoning?
Because on Yom Tov, in the Shemona Esrei, we do not say Vayechulu. So therefore, since we don't say it in the prayer, so therefore we say it after the prayer. Now you say, well, if that's the case, why don't we just say it? Why do we just say it on Yom Tov after the prayer and not on regular Shabbos after the prayer? And we say the answer is that we were afraid of people getting confused. People might get confused, and that's that. All right?
Yeah.
Can I know?
So
Let's go
Rabbi,
by. Yes.
The wife and child might not be Adim, so they might not be. That's why maybe why on Yom Tov you have to say it after Shabbos. You can't just rely on the one at home, because your wife and your child might not be considered Adim.
I hear, but who said? But again,
or-
then why we? According to Tosfos, it's good enough to say it just in
Saying
Shemona
If
Esrei.
it's Yom Tov,
Again,
why can't you rely on the one at
let's.
home?
I like saying, let's not get distracted
Correct. Go
from
to
the
the weeds.
content that we are dealing with currently at this particular time.
Correct.
Why is that very important? It's extremely important because, again, The Tosfos does not mention.
You're amazing.
There's nothing in the
Who's the
Tosfos
something?
that mentions the fact that we need to have testimony. I'm telling you from outside, from previous knowledge. Now you're trying to challenge me on that knowledge that I had. We have to find the source. Where is that? Right? It's very hard to have a Talmudic discussion on something that we don't know what's flying, right?
Okay.
As a matter of fact, there is a Talmud that says you're not allowed to ask a rabbi a question on a topic that's not being discussed. Why? Because what do we, we're discussing this topic. Right now, you throw the whole thing off track. Right now, we're talking about the Tosfos, and the Tosfos, that's what he said. Okay, good.
Good.
All right, any questions? Remember, if we have anybody online that wants to ask questions, you could ask questions, but only on top. If you're going to ask a random question like, why are the Jews coming from Mars, then I'm not going to answer these questions. You can go find out and type Jewish conspiracy theory.
Rabbi,
Good. Yes, what's your question?
what's the reason why we say it after Shemona Esrei?
The reason we say it after Shemona Esrei is because on Jewish holidays, the
Oh, so we don't.
Shemona Esrei does not include Vayechulu.
That's why.
So therefore, we have to say it after Shemona Esrei. Now you ask me, then why don't we only do it on holidays? The rabbis were afraid if we only did it on holidays, we'd forget, and therefore they just established it as to do it the whole year round. Yeah? Can I know how? So. Yeah. They didn't want to make a differentiation between one Shabbos to the next. Now, if you remember what we were discussing here in the Tosfos, it seems that the Tosfos is in fact saying that this is a biblical obligation to drink wine on Friday night. However, Tosfos moves on to say, Venira, it appears to me the Kiddush al Yain asmachtahi. Asmachtahi means it is relying on the biblical verses, but it's not a biblical commandment. Asmachta comes from the word somech, which means next to or leaning on. It leans on. Many rabbinic decrees were based on concepts that it was said in the Torah.
That's where the word smicha comes from. No?
Yes, so the same word. Smicha is leaning.
I also have it here because you just said, man.
All right?
Yeah.
What was I saying? I don't remember. Okay. Again, asmachta. Asmachta is a very important word. We use this in the Gamara a lot. It means it's leaning. Very often the biblical decree, even though it was established by the rabbis, but they would try to find a hint or something to lean it on the biblical verses. So even though we said that there's two biblical verses that says remembering are on wine, but it's not a commandment. You don't see clear in the books of Moses where it commands you clearly to drink wine on Shabbat. And therefore, it is 100% rabbinical. It's a rabbinical decree to drink wine on Shabbat and to make Kiddush on wine on Shabbat. However, they use these verses to kind of lean on these verses that seem to be mentioning that remembering is on wine. Yeah? Right? This that it says that women would be, there's opinion that women are responsible to say Kiddush for Shabbat, according to Torah. Which means women are, according to that opinion, they are obligated to sanctify the Shabbat by making a Shabbat recognition declaration. No, they have to do Kiddush.
Actual Kiddush?
However, they don't have to do it on wine.
Oh, they can do it on water.
No,
They can do it on bread.
they can do it without anything. They can just say a blessing and that's that. All right?
Oh, the women have it easy.
Yeah.
The rabbinical
We have
decree-
Nick Lim wants you to know that God loves you. He says,
thank you.
praise the
Thank you.
Lord, for he is good. He is steadfast. Love is eternal. So
Oh,
God loves us.
God's
Usually I don't mention what these
Justice
people
Butch.
write, but
Justice Butch.
unless it's relevant. But it's very important to remind ourselves that when we're studying the Talmud, this Talmud is in fact a God-given inspiration. And it's important to remember that we're not just talking about rabbinic discussions. We're actually talking about real godly, inspirational concepts. So that's why it's good to remember every once in a while that this is a godly inspired program and not just some fun, let's just talk and have fun type of thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
good.
not just a Talmudic ritual.
Good, yeah.
Just confirming, so the
It is a Talmudic ritual. A Talmudic ritual
Oh,
is a godly thing.
it is a godly.
It's a godly thing. So it's good. It's good to remind ourselves every once in a while that there's a God around and that He's very happy to see us here studying. And anybody joining us online is also, I'm sure, God's very happy for it.
But the
Yeah.
rabbinical decree to drink wine on Shabbos also for Yom Tov. Or is Yom Tov different?
Again, any time that we make kiddush on wine, it is a rabbinical concept.
Okay, anytime.
It's not that there's no biblical requirement to drink wine. Okay, if you want to drink alcohol, don't blame it on God, blame it on the rabbis. That's it. It's all our fault. We put it in there. We
It has to
decided.
have some fun.
So you got to drink the wine.
That's the Indian.
That's the Indian. That's the Indian. Good. Continue. Good. Yeah.
No, I'm stretching.
Good. So let's finish over here. So again, even the women, even according to the opinion that women are obligated to make the blessing on Shabbat, to proclaim Shabbat, they can do it verbally. They don't have to do it on wine. Only rabbinically they should do it on wine or hear somebody do it on wine.
Nice what you're saying, yeah?
Kedemashma. Yeah, kedemashma breish nazir, the common yayin b'shechem yazir lesser yayin mitzvah ki yayin rishus. Meparach mayniu. And basically there's in the where it's speaking about a nazir. What's a nazir? How do we say a nazir in English? No,
A
Nazirite. Is that really what it's called? A Nazirite. So a nazir who's not allowed to drink wine. It says over there that the Bible commands him do not drink wine and certain products. Yeah. And it says over there, the Torah is even trying to prohibit him from drinking wine of a mitzvah. And it asks over there, what type of mitzvah do we have on wine? And it answered, Kiddush of Avdallah, Kiddush and Avdallah. Mushba v'yoyim Mahar Sinai, who it says that he is sworn by the Mount of Sinai to do it. Right? Itzich klal misar. Therefore, you needed a biblical verse to prohibit this wine. So it seems from there that it is biblical. Again, he's playing devil's advocate. It seems to be etc. Ela ki had the Amar Rava Shvua she'este. So Tosfos says that's not the Rava over there says it's not biblical, even though the Gemara suggests that it's biblical. Rava says no, it's not a biblical commandment. It is the only reason why it had to tell you clearly that a Nazirite cannot drink any wine and said it in a very strong way is to give you an example where he is biblically obligated not to drink wine, which would be, meaning he would be biblically obligated not to drink wine when he is biblically obligated to drink wine. When on earth is somebody biblically obligated to drink wine? Is there any time that anybody could think of that a person is biblically obligated to drink wine? No, I'm sorry, but that's also rabbinic. Rabbinic, we just said it's rabbinic. When is, that's rabbinic. The wine's rabbinic. The blessing is biblical. The blessing is biblical. The wine's rabbinic. So again, obviously that passage says that there is a biblical situation where you would be obligated biblically to drink wine. No, circumcision, you're not biblically obligated to drink wine either. Yeah. Huh? Nope. You're not obligated to drink wine in any of those ones.
There is one.
Yes.
There is, yeah.
Yeah. He's saying
In
that
the,
there is-
under the chuppah.
Nope, not even under the
Somebody
chuppah.
had it.
No, that's rabbinical. Sheva brachas rabbinical. Let's see if any of our serious Talmudic sages. Let's see if any of our serious Talmudic sages over here could come up. Rabbi Pasternak, what is a situation? What is a situation where you're biblically obligated to drink wine? Biblically. Yeah. That's it. Let's see. Anybody? It's a tough one. Anybody? It's all rabbinic. That's rabbinic.
Pesach.
No, we said somebody mentioned that. It's also rabbinic. Anybody online could try to answer this too. when is a person biblically obligated to drink wine? I'm sure when I tell you guys, you're like, oh, I could have got that. We'll give you a couple more moments. Don't give it this.
It's not cheap.
People can't, they're
Huh?
obligated to drink wine.
Same as a tool. Yeah, it's a great tool to use. Yeah.
Oh,
What?
in the base of Mikdash.
When is the base of
Oh,
No, the Kohen does. You pour it on the. You pour it You pour it on the altar, but you don't drink it. No. Biblically obligated to drink wine.
coronation of a king?
No.
No.
Every morning.
Every morning.
What do you think happens?
No one's getting the answer.
I knew you got to tell me.
All right.
Let's hear it.
I'm sure you're gonna say, "Oh, come on." If you made an oath that you're going to drink wine, the Torah it says in the Torah.
He's pissed off.
It says in the Torah that if you make an oath, you have to keep the oath. That's what it says. So if you make an oath that you're going to drink wine, then you're biblically obligated to drink wine. I want to share with you a story. Once we're going on this, it's a true story with unfortunately a tragic ending. But the story goes as follows. Yeah, let's see.
Oh.
What?
Every time you say drink wine from the Rabbanan, you're biblically obligated to drink it.
Biblically obligated. Correct.
Cute.
You're biblically obligated to listen to the rabbis, but when you say biblically, you mean biblically in reference to not. Anyways,
It's a big
yes,
McCoy
correct.
over here now.
You're biblically obligated to listen to the rabbis. In Deuteronomy, it says that you should listen to the rabbis of your time, the judges of your time, which is referring to the rabbis. Today we call them rabbis. Then they call them judges. It does say in Deuteronomy you must listen to the judges of your time. So therefore, you are biblically obligated to listen to the rabbis. But in a Talmudic discussion, when you say biblically obligated, you mean biblically and not rabbinically. So yes, if you want to play games, but the fact is that the Torah says you're biblically obligated to keep your oath, and therefore, if you make an oath that you're going to drink wine, you're biblically obligated to drink wine. And if you're a Nazirite, you're not allowed to drink wine, even if you made an oath to drink wine. Yes, they're not allowed to drink wine at all. Now, I want to share with you a story, and then we're going to move on, Bezrat Hashem. But the story is as follows. There was a person who unfortunately was seriously obese, and it was extremely dangerous. It was becoming a dangerous situation. The doctors did not like the situation, what they were seeing. And this person, they told him that, in order to get a grip on your weight, don't eat anything after 7 p.m. After 7 p.m., no food. Cut off. You wait the next morning. I don't think maybe till 9 o'clock. I don't know. They made something. And he knew that he could not handle it. So every day at 7 p.m., he would stand in front of two biblically qualified witnesses and say, I am hereby taking a biblical oath not to eat till tomorrow morning at this and this time. Yeah, he took a neder. He took an oath, a neder, not to eat till that time. And because he was an observant Jew, he said, this is what he told me, but it's correct. He said that if he took an oath not to eat, then eating it's not kosher. It's not kosher.
It's not kosher.
It's not kosher. What does not kosher mean? Everybody out there, kosher, kosher. Kosher basically means the Bible allows you to eat that. That's what kosher really is.
Can't eat it. The Bible doesn't.
As a Jew.
Right? As a Jew, correct. As a Jew.
Yeah, not for goyim.
Right? As a Jew. Right? Because I know there might be some goyim online listening, but the Jewish, the Gentiles. Goyim, by the way, goyim and Gentiles, not so. Goyim just means nations. It means like goyim are the nations of the world, and the Jews are the Jews, and then there's the nations.
A lot of the goyim think that the word
The goyim
is
think the
derogatory.
goyim, right.
But it's not.
Right. When I grew up in Brooklyn, the blacks, they thought that Schwarze was a very derogatory term. But what does Schwarz mean? Black in Yiddish, right? So he said, you say, oh, call me a black, don't call me a Schwarze. You're like,
It's the same word.
It's the same word, like, yeah. Refer to us as the black Americans and not Schwarze. The Schwarze means black. So it's the same thing with Goyim. Goyim means nations. I don't know why some people think it's
Depends how you
derogatory.
say it. The
Yeah,
intonation.
etc. What's that?
Depends
Well, you
how-
could say everything.
how
You
it's
could say,
said.
Huh?
Okay. Somebody says Jew. Can sound
Exactly. You
pretty
could
bad
say
also.
you could say Jew, and it
Okay, so-
depends on the tone. Correct.
Correct.
Anyways, I don't know where I'm going with this. What was it? What were we speaking about? What were we speaking about?
The oath. Kosher food.
Oh, the oath. The oath.
Kosher food.
So if a person makes an oath not to eat a particular food, then that food is not kosher for him. As a matter of fact, in the Talmud, in the rabbinic ordination program that we have here in this yeshiva, we speak about that if you make an oath for a certain thing, let's say I make an oath, let's say a person makes an oath not to eat rice cakes, and this rice cakes gets cooked in a pot, but then you remove the rice cakes. You're not allowed to cook something else in that pot and then eat it because it's not kosher.
Because of the oath.
Just like if pig was cooked in a pot, I can't now cook kosher food in that same pot because there's the taste of the pig in the walls. There's a taste of that rice cake in the walls of the pot. I can't use this pot anymore. It's not kosher. So this is what the guy did. He would make an oath every day that he is not eating till a certain time the next day, and this actually helped him for a little bit. And then at one point he stopped making the oath. And unfortunately, about a year later, he died of a stroke, which likely happened because of no, it's because he was obese. And by the way, after that story, it was very traumatic because I knew this guy very well. He was a really nice guy, and so I was actually once walking in the street, and I saw a different guy that I knew that was also obese, and he just looked very similar to the other guy, and I like dug into him. I said, "Dude, you're too fat. Stop eating." And he's like, why are you embarrassing me? Why are you insulting me? I'm like, do you know that could kill you? He's like, what are you talking about? What do you mean it could kill me? I said, go ask your doctor. They'll tell you if you're so fat, you can have, God forbid, heart attacks, strokes. I told him, I know a guy that died from this. And by the way, about a few months later, I saw he lost a bunch of weight. He probably went to the doctor, and the doctor said, but the guy knows what he's talking about, you know. You don't need to be a genius to know that if you're too fat. I'm a little too overweight, but not like overweight. Like if you're too overweight, diabetes, heart disease, and by the way, stroke are highly caused by obesity. Right? If you have any doctors out there, you can confirm or deny any of this. But I've definitely heard this from a lot of doctors that it's a very big problem. They tell that to me. They said they warn me, you're not yet too obese. They say I am obese, but not too much. So they say watch out because you're like, if you do get a little fatter, you'd have a problem. Right?
He said you're festively plump.
Huh?
Festively plump.
Festively plump. All right. Good.
A lot of challah.
All right. Yeah.
South Park.
Yeah. Basically, the Tosfos concludes by saying as follows. He says that, in fact, there is an argument to suggest that making kiddush on wine is biblical. There is those that say that. However, drinking it is definitely rabbinical. So basically, according to the Tosfos, there is a way of suggesting that making the kiddush on the wine is biblical. However, the fact that you have to drink the wine that you make the kiddush on, that is definitely biblical. And that's how the Tosfos concludes. So again, this Tosfos was a little bit off topic, but I think it was very, helpful and interesting, hopefully for you guys, insightful. If anybody has questions, please feel free to share them, whether you're here live or on the live stream. You go into the thing and put in the questions. Again, this class we don't answer random questions. If you ask a question that's relevant to a topic we discussed, feel free. Otherwise, at least in this program, we're still waiting for my producer to make a general podcast where you can ask all the crazy questions that we get, like, why did you kill Jesus?
We kind of were talking about drinking and not drinking wine. And
Anyways.
such. Are Cohen allowed to get drunk?
So that's a good question. Now, a Kohen that is drunk cannot serve in the temple.
Right.
You're not allowed to serve in the temple. It's biblical. You're not allowed to serve in the temple. If a person's drunk, no temple service. Right? However, because today we believe that at any moment the temple services can be reinstated. So therefore, many Kohanim will not drink. It is a suggestion. It's not an obligation. As a matter of fact, it says because even in the time of the temple, there were 24 groups of Kohanim, and each one had 1 week, right? Meaning they had shifts, right? Not every Kohen racked up and did the temple service whenever he wants. It was 24 shifts, and each one got a week, right? And since you're a Kohen, you don't know if the temple's rebuilt, but maybe it's not your week. So therefore, because you don't know, therefore you're not obligated not to drink. However, many Kohanim will be careful not to drink. But that's up to them. It's not a requirement. Yeah, any other questions? Can I know? Do you want to put this? Let's put our WhatsApp group. If you want to keep in touch,
QR code.
we have a QR code and a link. The QR code just went up on the screen. If you go to the QR code, you can join our WhatsApp group, which you will be reminded
There's also a link in
when.
the description of the video.
Oh, there's in the description of the video. There's also a link that you can join this WhatsApp group. If you join the WhatsApp group, you will be reminded when we start the class. And we will try to also put the link. Did we end up putting the link today or no?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did, but a link for the video,
Also has the-
so it's easier to find the class. I know some people have tried. Oh, and also our worksheets we give out, we will also be putting once a week on the chat. So if you enjoy the class and you want to keep in touch, join the WhatsApp group so you'll be reminded and keep in touch. And I guess that's it. No, anything else? If you didn't subscribe, then I want to ask you a question. What are you waiting for? No,
Oh,
what
Daft.
are you waiting for?
You gotta comment over it.
Huh? Where? Let's see. Comment. Is it an important comment? Let's see.
Do they read?
Hmm?
Do you read out of the book of Daniel? Of
Daniel is one of the Jewish scriptures, of course.
course, you guys
course.
read out of our book over here. Eh?
Daniel's a very, very read book. Daniel, Isaiah, Ezekiel.
We read
All
all
these
the
books.
Haftarahs.
Yeah.
The Haftarahs.
By the way, just to throw this out there, there is a very how should I say, misleading video going around on YouTube. They call it the hidden verses of Isaiah. It's a complete fallacy. They basically try to say, oh, we don't read a particular verse in the Haftarah. Well, I hate to break it to you, we don't read every verse in the Haftarah, right? When we read the five books, when we read the 5 books of Moses, we read it in order and we try to go through every year the entire 5 books of Moses. However, we do not try to read the entire Tanakh on a regular basis. There were specific verses that were chosen that were similar to the reading of the Torah portion of the week. Now, the fact that they didn't choose that particular thing, well, there's many other ones they didn't choose either, right? They make as if we're hiding it, right? As a matter of fact, the Christians have all of those books because of us. We're the ones that gave it to them. They took it from us. They didn't write those books. They wrote what they called the New Testament. Those books they wrote, but anything before, these are all Jewish books, and there would be no reason why Jews wouldn't read it because Jews actually wrote them, and they were taken from the Jewish nation. We were the ones that started it. So obviously, any book from the time of the Jewish people, we're still reading. We might not necessarily agree or read the other books that were written later, right? So any of the Gospels we won't read, but anything before, any from the time of from that time, any of the books before that time of the Gospels are definitely read by the Jewish people because we invented them, we wrote them, right? Yeah. Here you go. Anyways, that's no, I'm saying don't read the Gospels. The Gospels are like what they would call the New Testament. What the Christians call the New Testament, we don't read. But everything from before then, those are our books. That's what they are, right? They're our books. We read them. Yeah. Good. Anything else that's interesting over there? No. Let's cut it off.